Hello everyone and welcome to another News Coolum video and another plug side chat. I have a friend who's in an EV advocacy group with me, and we were having a discussion the other day, and he had talked about how he felt the problem with building public fast charging right now, or just public charging in general, is that there's no return on investment, especially in terms of businesses, that there's no return on investment, and that's part of the reason you're seeing such a slow increase in the number of public charging options. And to a certain degree, I agree with him, but I actually don't agree that that's the case universally. And I think more it's just a matter of the businesses that would have high profitability as a result of installing public charging. And in particular, and in this video, I'm going to speak specifically about public DC fast charging. The businesses that have the most to gain from that, the most to profit from it, I think they just haven't been convinced yet. And that's on us to do, because I feel there are a number of business locations or business types or business models that have very high profitability as a result of installing public DC fast charging and have a very fast ROI. I really wanted to talk about three different businesses for that ROI model, or three different business types, and the ones that have the most to gain and the most to profit by installing these public DC fast charging stations. And two of them should be pretty obvious. One of them maybe not so obvious. So the first is food and drink establishments, in particular those along highways. If the business has a 10 to 20% margin, so a 20% margin would be basically a customer comes in and buys $5 worth of goods, that business sees about $1 profit for every $5 of goods that they sell. There are several fast food chains that operate that way. McDonald's has close to a 20% margin. In-N-Out has close to a 20% margin. In-N-Out's private, so I don't think that's ever been really confirmed, but it's pretty likely that it's close to a 20% margin. A lot of the diners will have close to a 10% margin, basically. Somewhere in that range, those businesses, especially the ones that are nearby freeways or high-speed travel corridors, they have a lot to benefit by installing a couple of DC fast chargers. The reason for that, if you go through the data, say California has the highest level of uptake right now of electric vehicles, but if you look at the chargers that are located along highway routes, they're occupied about 20 to 25% of the time. What that equates to is, if you, based on the time of use, right, or the typical time of use, a 30 to 45-minute session, if you sort of extrapolate the data out, that means that installing two chargers at a location, given the typical occupancy, those businesses can expect 10 to 12 new customers a day. Now, converting those customers to actual sales, that's really on the business. Typically, the cheaper the business, the higher conversion rate you're going to have anyway. And when I say customers, though, that's vehicles. Right now, it might be mostly individuals who are traveling and commuting, but now all of a sudden you have a family. That's not really one customer per visit. That's actually could be two, three, four customers per visit. And so you're looking at a potential of the high end, right? 40 to 50 customers a day that you've increased solely by adding two DC fast chargers to your location. And there are businesses, ChargePoint and Green Lots will sell businesses chargers. Green Lots and ChargePoint, they're primarily, I think, interested in building their network, which is more software and billing, but they'll provide the hardware too. EVgo will just install the hardware, because EVgo is basically leasing parking spaces so that they can run their business in another business's parking lot. Those businesses have a lot to gain, whether it's a Denny's, an IHOP. Maybe you shouldn't be International House of Burgers. Maybe try International House of Chargers. You probably get a lot more customers that way. They're the business that has a huge ROI. If you actually break it down, the installation costs for those chargers would be less than 5 years if they're making 10, 20, $30 profit um, a day just based on one charger, right, or two chargers. So that upselling of goods basically at a high profit margin pays for those chargers much more quickly. And of course, for the non-converted customers that are visiting that location, at the very least, the cost of using the charger should pay for the power, the equipment, and the upkeep. So really, you're not losing anything by the people that are coming in and using the charger and not actually frequenting the business. Worst case scenario, it's just helping to pay for the chargers themselves and improving the ROI. So the second business that really benefits from DC fast charger installation, and this one should be fairly obvious given Tesla, are auto manufacturers. I know a lot of people complain that GM isn't spending enough money advertising the Bolt EV or the Volt for that matter, or any of their electric vehicle offerings. But I actually feel that any money that they pay is too much for marketing, because all of that advertising, all of that marketing budget, in my opinion, for electric vehicles should just be focused on paying for chargers. Now, I know GM doesn't want to get into the fueling business. I completely support that. I think they should focus on bringing 20 new electric vehicles to market by 2020 or whatnot. But I do not think that they need to market it in any way. Instead, what they should be doing is they should be partnering with EVgo, they should be partnering with ChargePoint, they should be paying them to build new facilities for public fast charging. One of the ways that they recoup that is, part of the business agreement is that they get their name and their vehicles and their offerings sort of advertised on that. You already see that a little bit with EVgo and Nissan. So Nissan has a lot of their Nissan Leaf advertisements on EVgo stations. Well, GM should be doing the same thing. Pay EVgo to build stations at certain locations. You're offsetting EVgo's prices. EVgo's able to expand their network faster. Same with ChargePoint, same with Greenlots. Basically, GM would at that point be advertising through their charging network, which, like I said, Tesla has proven that to be a very effective model. Their supercharger network acts as much of a advertising vehicle as any sort of TV or newspaper ad would do. Now, the third business, and this is the one that I haven't really heard people talk about too much, is I actually think power plants. Now, when you think of a power plant, you traditionally think of some large stack coal burning plant or whatever. And those aren't exactly the places you'd want to stop while traveling with an electric vehicle. However, I've made mention of this in other videos about using natural gas fuel cells and steam turbine and heat transfer technology. So like one of them would be like a heat recovery steam generator or whatnot. These power plants that sell power to the grid, they're basically selling the power at wholesale prices. If you were to install DC fast chargers at basically dispersed power plant locations, what you'd be able to do is, in addition to selling power at wholesale, you'd be able to sell it retail directly to customers. Now, if you think that the model in the future, and I think this is possible, having travel locations, travel charger locations with 400 kilowatt chargers, well, that's 16 megawatts of power. During peak times, who's going to supply that? Well, really only a power plant could. So whether you're talking about individual personal transportation vehicles, light duty vehicles charging at 400 kilowatts, or electrified semis plugging into dual ports charging at 800 kilowatts, either way, you're talking about massive amounts of draw that's going to have to come from somewhere. Well, having a dispersed grid of, say, 500 to 1,000, maybe at most 100 megawatt power plants, And these power plants can be regional, running off of a diverse type of renewable fuels, whether it's solar, whether it's a combination of solar, combined cycle solar, hydro, tidal, doesn't really matter, wave generation. There's a number of clean energy sources that are regional specific that would feed right into these power plants that could be located right off the freeway. And essentially, like I said, it gives these power plants the option of selling to the grid and selling power directly to consumers. And it actually probably is going to help them sort of level off how they generate power and when, right? And then of course it'd have to be tied into some sort of battery backup system that would allow them to store that power for when it needs to be used, so they can handle peak demands and changes in demands from the grid. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I disagree with the idea that Tesla had batted around about making their supercharging sites off grid. I think that's a bad idea. But this is one of those reasons why. And I think that power companies can really, really benefit. Like I said, if you were to make 500 to 1,100 megawatt sites that also have 40, 400 kilowatt DC fast chargers on site, dispersed throughout the country. One, you basically make long distance travel throughout the country, whether it's for semis or for personal transportation, you make it easy. You also make higher profits by selling power direct. You're actually increasing the grid input or the power plant production in the United States by about 5 to 10%, which is significant because 100% transition to electric vehicles would increase electricity consumption in the United States by about 20%. So you're already covering half of the increase in demand due to transitioning from fossil fuel powered vehicles to grid powered electric vehicles. That's my idea for the three businesses that really should focus on building these DC fast chargers publicly that have a high level of ROI. I'd love to hear what you think, what other ideas you have, where you think I'm off base. If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And thank you for watching.